Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Garrett Kling. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am co-executive director of AIT. And a pleasure to see so many tonight. Thank you for taking time in your evening to join us. We have a very special first offering tonight, but before we get started, I want to make a few announcements. One is that our Adult Weekend Skateaway registration is coming out July 1st. This is for all adult skaters of all levels and abilities. It will be September 15th through 17th in Austin, Texas. And it is just a really fun weekend where we have a retreat. Basically, it's a retreat and we skate some, but we also do a lot of social events and mindfulness, yoga, dance, choreography, improv. We always have Elin Shran come do ice flow. It's just a really good time. So that registration will come out July 1st. Be on the lookout for that. And we will have our seasonal or our summer series every 3 weeks. So our next one, I believe, will be July 18th. So make sure you join us for those. And if you can't make it, we have recordings. Don't sweat it. You can always watch and join us later. So without further ado, I am so excited to announce and introduce our special guests today. First, we have Annette Thomas, and Annette has been teaching the Vaganova method for over 30 years throughout the United States and abroad. Originally trained at Carnegie Hall by the late Maria Nabalska of the Bolshoi Ballet. She also trained with Ana Garcia of the San Juan Ballet Company, Margaret de Angera, I probably said her name wrong, I'm so sorry, and Alexandra de la Nova of the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo at her time at the Connecticut Regional Ballet Company. Annette founded Ballet for Figure Skaters in 1999, first by having a website and then authoring 2 books and a streaming video, and also offers virtual classes for all of us. We are thrilled that she's partnered with AIT for many years now, and just so grateful for the knowledge, expertise, and passion she shares with us. We are also joined by Madeline Stammen, and Madeline is an experienced professional figure skater, performing artist, and storyteller. She is a USFS triple gold medalist and has performed in over 30 countries worldwide. Since 2012, she has skated as a lead for companies such as Royal Caribbean International and was in the inaugural Cirque du Soleil ice show, Crystal. She is now pursuing a degree at Savannah College of Art and Design in production, design, and themed entertainment. So Madeline and Annette, thank you so much. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Garrett. It's always a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. I see a lot of names, a few faces, so I'm just going to wave to all the names and faces. And yes, and thank you for joining us. I just want to give a little background into when Garrett asked me to do a workshop on stretching in particular to work and increase turnout. My first thought was, I don't really do stretching, so how am I going to work this out? And then I just wanted to say, we definitely, in the Vaganova method, we definitely do a lot of eccentric contraction exercises, which actually help us to stretch better than just merely stretching. In fact, the Vaganova level 0, which is the equivalent of pre-ballet for anyone else, everything is geared precisely towards eccentric contractions exercises on the floor and at the bar, so that we have the strongest tensile strength possible, so that we can continue into the ensuing levels. So we're going to talk about how eccentric contractions, and it is eccentric, it's not eccentric. All right, everyone in Canada and Europe knows this. I don't know why the United States doesn't, but anyway, just to get that over with. These exercises are going to help you to be able to stretch better, to be stronger, without just this passive stretching that a lot of people do. All right, so without much more ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through my notes, because there is some science in here. I don't want to go off on a rabbit trail. So first, we're going to talk about the differences in the types of contractions and how we're going to work all of our exercises later on in this workshop. All right, so I'm just going to start reading, and then I will elaborate. Now, what I'm reading from, you should all either have printed out or you should have it on your screen, on your phone. So I'm not just going to read word for word, but I will paraphrase a few things. All right, so the focus of this workshop is on safely and effectively increasing turnout and general range of motion of the pelvis, the hip joints, and the lumbar vertebra. It's all three of these factors which contribute to usable, stable flexibility. When we do spot stretching, we tend to create loose joints only, and we disregard the body as a whole, as an integrated whole. And we always have to think of the body as being connected. So we don't want to just work on the calf muscles, because the calves are connected to so many other things. We want to be conscious that we are an entire being that needs to be aligned before we just start hammering into one particular stretch. All right. Skaters need to do more eccentric contraction exercises in order to strengthen and lengthen muscles and keep joints strong. Increasing range of motion is better accomplished through eccentric contraction exercises than any form of stretching, as it both lengthens and strengthens muscles simultaneously. So it's not like you have an either or situation. You either go to your strength training class or you go to your stretching class. You can have it all doing eccentric contractions, because we are achieving the strength to lengthen out. So we have not just loose joints, but we have strength, we have tensile strength. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go on to the three types of muscle contractions. We have isometric. Isometric contraction is when you're doing a jump, right? And you're bringing the legs together. The insides of the legs are squeezing together. The muscle contracts, but it doesn't change its size or shape, not size, but its shape, okay? So it stays the same size, it stays the same shape, but it contracts. Then we have concentric contractions. Those are the kind that when the muscle kind of bunches up. Now this contraction, the muscle actually changes its shape. It gets shorter. A lot of exercises that we do as sports people are concentric contraction exercises. You notice when you're doing sit-ups, so many movements that are actually straining the skeleton forward instead of stretching out and opening out. This kind of concentric contraction is what leads us to believe and leads us to feel very tight. A lot of times when you do a lot of weight training, you're feeling really tight, and it's because of the type of contraction that you're doing. The last one is the one that we're going to focus on, and that is the eccentric contraction, which contracts the muscle, but it also lengthens the muscle while it's contracting. So this type of contraction tends to support the skeletal system in a very, very deep way, whereas the concentric contractions are working more on your mobilizer muscles. The eccentric contractions are working on your stabilizer muscles. And this is why in the Vaganova method, you have the level 0 kids doing all of these eccentric contractions, because they're working on the stabilizer muscles and the tendons so that they have this beautiful foundation to work from, and will help them not to be injured in the future. They'll be strong and they'll be flexible all at once. All right, so Madeline, you had some things to say about that.
Yeah, thanks, Annette. That was wonderful. I just wanted to bring this into a skating context. When I coach, I teach a lot of skaters, specifically spins. So many head coaches will hire me just to focus on the skater spins and kind of get back to the basics. And there are so many skaters that I see, they're trying to get to these high, they're trying to rack up levels on spins, but they don't have what Annette's talking about, a foundation, like a really stable foundation to be able to hold themselves up on one leg in a spin. Usually they have, they're not able to stabilize on one leg. So for instance, if I'm teaching a camel spin, I often have to take skaters off of the ice and have them feel an eccentric, Annette, eccentric contraction on their standing leg. So I'm always going to say, lengthen the skating foot, lengthen the free leg so that you feel like you're stretching like a rubber band from each part of your foot. And, if skaters were to very early on sort of have this off-ice training, they wouldn't need so much of that fixing later on when they're trying to get to higher levels in spins. I see the same thing in layback spins often. Skaters won't know how to lift up and in before they go back. And so this prevents them from maintaining speed, maintaining a good center in their spins. So all of these exercises and that's going to show you later on in this presentation are all really good foundational exercises to have so that you or your skaters can have stronger, more stable spins.
All right, thank you. Yes, it really helps with injury prevention. This really protects the body against being unstable. So, all right. So I'm going to go into a little bit more explanation of eccentric contractions and what they can do for us. The eccentric contraction exercises are slow, lengthening contractions. You notice that most of what happens on social media is very, very fast, right? And this is not the way to get our mind in our body. I'm always talking about like a modern dancer, put your mind in your body. And the way you can do this is to have a slow exercise. All eccentric contraction exercises are slow and they're lengthening exercises. A muscle that is being lengthened while it is contracting can maintain greater tension than with any other type of contraction. In other words, your muscles become stronger and can take more force when you do eccentric contractions. So again, just like Madeline said, think about jumps and spins. Think about jump landings. It can take more force. You have that tensile strength to keep your joints strong and yet still be flexible. All right, so eccentric contraction exercises also improve tendon and tensile strength, as I said before. As a result of improved tendon strength, this will essentially help you bulletproof your tendons against injuries. Okay, Madeline, you wanted to say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, just to provide just a quick story about it increasing tendon strength. I had a pretty bad knee injury. I've had 2 ACL repairs in my right knee from years and years of most likely overuse, but also just instability in my hips and just a few other tweaks that could have been fixed very early on in my career. So one of the things that my physical therapist really focused on when they were rehabbing my knee was only eccentric exercises. Really focused on my right leg, but for the first 3 months to a year, that's really all we focused on to get my knee tendon health back into shape for skating.
Okay, all right, great. So when we're talking about stretching, we're talking not just about muscles, right? We're talking about tendons and we're talking about ligaments. So we have to take that into consideration. Otherwise, again, we get loose joints and that's an accident waiting to happen. So these types of exercises lengthen and strengthen. All right. So also, and now the clincher is, these kinds of exercises provide for a wider range of motion. So we talked about the concentric exercises, these, right, as actually constricting our range of motion, whereas these provide the ability for a greater range of motion. So this is part of flexibility. All right. And lastly, it improves mind-body connection and neural adaptions. All right. And again, this is because they are slow and they require more concentration to do correctly. You know, so you can't just be doing this, right? All right. Or laying in a split and then not being able to get up and walk afterwards. You really have to think about your body. You have to think about your alignment and you have to work consciously to get these exercises to their full benefit within your body. All right, so all of these notes that I have come from a specific website. So instead of just putting all asterisks for everything, you can go to this website, the Basketball Doctors, and they have a wonderful article on eccentric contraction exercises. I always try to kind of give you a broad variety. I teach Vaganova method, but I also recognize that other people have just as good exercises, just in case you don't like ballet. Right. Okay, so I'm going to just briefly read through some of these guidelines. I don't have to read them all to you. I just want to pick out a few things. Madeline will have more to say about that, and then we're going to get right into those exercises. Okay, so in the guidelines, first and foremost, a stretch is not a warm-up. Never tell your students to go warm up and do your stretches, or do your stretches and warm up. No, all right, they are two entirely different things. And when a warm-up becomes a stretch is a very individual situation. You can see a professional ballet dancer and they're backstage. They're taking their leg up and they're going over and this and that and the other, right? That's their warm-up, all right? For you, it might put you in the hospital, okay? So it's very, very different and very individual. When I say stretching, I'm talking about to increase range of motion. I'm not talking about warming up to achieve your best at your current range of motion. To me, that is just a warm-up. Stretching means that you are increasing or desiring to increase your range of motion. So this is the way I'm using the word stretching. All right, so you're going to be wearing warm clothing. Under no circumstances should you be stretching on the ice. All right, I don't know what they're thinking, and I'm not going to go into it, but no. Okay. We will work on myofascial massages. I highly recommend, I call them the warm-up before the warm-up. Doing myofascial massages will help loosen the myofascia, which is actually holding your muscles in place. So a lot of times when you feel like you're really tight, you're actually, it's not the muscle that's tight, but it's the myofascia that's constricting you and not allowing that muscle to move the way it naturally would. So instead of forcing your muscle to do what it will definitely do if you ask it kindly, first do the massages and then your body will work better for you. But you have to be really listening to your body to do that. Okay, number 2, begin with your current range of motion in a completely aligned manner. All right, external aids are rarely necessary when the body is properly aligned. You can have a child throwing their leg up and stretching, but the supporting leg knee is bent, the body is tilted over. This is not really a properly aligned stretch. Eventually, they're going to hurt themselves, and the stretch is better served when the whole body is in good alignment. Okay. Concentrate on the part of the body that you want to stretch. You want to feel that the stretch is happening in what they call the belly of the body, of the muscle, not the origin or the insertion. If you're feeling a pull at the joints, that means you're either not warmed up well enough, you are not aligned properly, or the stretch is just too much for your body at this point in time. All right, number 4, remember that everything is connected. Make sure that you realize that you need to inform, you need to communicate with your whole body, not just the foot or the knee or the hip, right? Everything is connected. When you want a greater turnout, you're going to have to consider your spine. You're going to have to consider your pelvis. You're going to have to consider many different things, not just cranking out the leg in the hip socket. All right. And then maybe not lastly, because I have a couple more here, but deep breathing. Deep breathing should always be a part of your stretch. All right. Breathing into the stretch, breathing coming out of the stretch, because we want to get oxygen into all of our muscles, and we want to get rid of lactic acid. So deep breathing is very important. The last one here is rest for at least several hours after stretching. No physical activity, maybe you want to take a walk or something is fine, but not jumping, all right? Not lifting. Strenuous activity after extreme stretching to increase range of motion can cause loose joints and a situation ripe for injury. Okay, so never ever do stretching to increase range of motion just before you're ready to do jumps. Okay, it can be very, very detrimental. All right, if you feel you must stretch, try to do it at the end of the last class of the day. All right. Rarely, if ever, do passive stretching. Try dynamic stretching, the kind of stretching that we're going to be doing, or just holding a pose long enough to feel a release. So moving in and out of the stretch. Never more than about 30 seconds at the very, very most. All right. Remember to breathe deeply. You can massage the area, all right? Remember that everything is connected, never immediately before a competition and not before practicing jumps. And if you're a teacher or coach, never during a growth spurt, Okay, the long bones of the body are growing very, very fast. They're growing faster than the muscles that are attached to them. So already the muscles are stressed. All right, so they don't need more stretching. You need to wait until the child kind of catches up. And there's plenty of other things you can do with your students, artistry, working on the musicality, etc. So you don't want to stretch at this point. All right, their bodies are changing, right? So when they come out of that growth spurt, they're going to feel like a different person, right? So we have to work slowly through those. All right, Madeline, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Annette. I think Annette, what you're saying is so important for coaches and skaters to hear. There is a lot of confusion around flexibility with social media and everything on the internet. I feel like I myself, like as a professional coach and skater, I get confused too with all the information. And so having like everything you're saying just to cut through the noise makes things so much clearer for us. So thank you. And I just wanted to reiterate some of your points that really struck me as, you know, something I can change in my own training. And that was when you're talking about flexibility training, you're talking about these prolonged stretches that we see skaters doing. I have a specific memory growing up of a skater who used to sit in the middle splits on the bleachers as her mom would do her hair, getting ready to skate for the day. And this is exactly the type of behavior we're saying not to do, because this girl in particular was just loosening up her joints to the point where she's going to have to go out and do a long program with 7 jumps, and stretching to that extent actually decreases your power. So I just think it's really important to really read these points that Annette is saying and try and apply them. Don't tell your skaters just to go stretch for prolonged periods of time before they get on the ice. They should be dynamically stretching, which means no more than 30 seconds for a muscle that you know is tight in your current range of motion. For example, I have really, really tight calves from being in skates my whole life. So one of the things that I personally do before I get on the ice is 3 sets of a 30-minute stretch just on my calves, and that's it. I'm not holding it for 1 minute, 2 minutes. I'm just doing enough to loosen up the muscle so that I feel like I'm in a proper range of motion when I'm in my skates. So I think that's something that's really important to know the difference, that these stretches that are shorter in length, 10 to 30 seconds, are okay, and they should be dynamic. So you should be going through your joints, full range of motion. Like the leg swing, I'm sure everybody has seen people do some leg swings before they get on the ice. Things like that, they're a little bit quicker and not so much a sustained stretch. They should be warming your muscles up to go do dynamic activity. Another thing I wanted to point out, because I think this is a buzzword as well that's going around on the internet, is the idea of mobility training. Mobility versus flexibility. Mobility personally is something that, again, I didn't really know a lot about until a couple of years ago. And a lot of what Annette is talking about with eccentric exercises is also training proper mobility. And training mobility is something we want to focus on more so than thinking, okay, I want to be more flexible. So I'm just going to define these two terms for everybody, just so there's sort of a clearer idea of what these two things are. And this is actually straight from one of the USFSA CERs that just came out this year. So mobility is defined as the ability of joints to move freely through their intended range of motion, or ROM, without restriction, and it's active. Flexibility, on the other hand, is defined as the ability of muscles just to stretch. You can be really flexible, but won't have full mobility. So an example of that is you're able to maybe sit on the splits on the floor, but you can't do a split spiral gliding on the ice. So it's the difference between active flexibility or good mobility versus just loose flexibility. So when you're training yourself and when you're training your skaters, you really want to focus on good joint mobility and active flexibility, which is why we were kind of struggling on what to call this workshop, because we knew flexibility would speak to a lot of people, but what we're really training with Annette's exercises is good active flexibility or mobility exercises.
Right. All right. Great. Thank you very much, Madeline. That was perfect. Excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone, we're going to the floor, and hopefully you can take your socks off. If you've got socks on, shoes and socks on, we're going to start with some myofascial massages, and we'll go on from there. Okay. All right, I'm going to tilt this down. All right, I'm not going to give corrections or anything because there's too many of you there, so I'm just going to have you follow along. All right. And I am going to, just so I can see. All right. Okay, so earlier I was talking about myofascia, all right? And we have myofascia that goes to the front line. It's called the front line, the back line. We have a deep front line, and we have transverse lines. There are 12 myofascial meridians that just swab, they wrap all of our muscles. And so when we are feeling tight, 9 times out of 10, it's the myofascia that's holding our muscles in place so that we cannot move freely. So no stretching. This is what I call warm up. Before the warm up, we're going to do the back line. If you've ever cut a steak open and you see that thin film, right, that's what myofascia is. And we have that covering all of our muscles. So the back line goes from the toes all the way back to the calves, the hamstring, the lumbar vertebra, all the way up the spine and attaches where the eye sockets are. So you could feel like you have a tight neck, a tight lower back, tight hamstrings, tight calves, and it could really just be your myofascia. So first of all, if you want to, we're going to go into a straddle so we can see a before and after. All right, so we're going into a straddle, and I want you to flex your feet, pulling the kneecaps up. So the kneecaps and the feet, toes should be facing the ceiling. And you're going to lift up and just with a flat back, lean forward until it's just slightly out to you, all right? No pain at all, just so you're feeling it. All right, so the legs should be out as much as they can, and you're leaning forward just so you can feel it. All right, now take into account where that is, what your position is, and now we're going to start working on the myofascia. So what you're going to do is you're going to use your knuckles. You're going to use the sharp points of your knuckles, and you're going to be digging in to the floor, the sole of your foot, and I want you to go from the ball of your foot straight down the middle. The harder you do this, the more it's going to telegraph all the way up. Okay, as sometimes it's a little painful. You can use lotion. All right, maybe not get it now, but when you try this later on, you're going to go to the inside arch, up to the ball of the foot again. You're going to go to the outside arch. I highly recommend that you try doing these. All right, and so that's one. There are 7 things to do. 2 is to pull back the toes as hard as you can. Each individual toe has its, mobility, flexibility. Then you're going to crunch. So this isn't a point, this is a crunch, so that you are contracting here. Right after that, you're going to take the tips of your fingers and go on the outside of the foot and the palm on the inside, and you're going to squeeze the foot in half, as if you're folding it in half lengthwise. Go up and down a couple of times. And then the last one is to hold the foot here, and it doesn't have to be completely straight, but you're going to go again with the knuckles across, not up and down, but across from the insertion into the back of the knee, origin to insertion. And then you can take your finger and your thumb and go in between the calf muscle. All right. Back of the knee, in between the calf muscle. Now go back into that straddle and flex, lift up, flat back, and see how that feels. Just kind of go back and forth. It should feel a little bit looser. The more you do this, the looser you're going to get. That's why I call it the warm up before the warm up. All right, quickly, let's do the other foot. One, knuckles only. Digging in as hard as you can. The whole foot, all right? Not the toes, but the ball of the foot, all the way down to the heel, and both arches, digging in as hard as you can, twisting, all right? This is much better than using a ball on your foot. We are made of electricity. We want to get in touch with our own bodies, okay? The fewer outside things you use, the better. And pulling the toes back individually, right? Crunching them forward. Folding the foot in half, really squeezing all the way up to the toes and back again. Here, knuckles going sideways, insertion, sideways, origin, insertion, all right, to the back of the knee, and then finger, index finger and thumb going in between the calf muscle, right? And then now go forward. And you did all of that without any stretching. It's just your body relaxed. All right, now the next one is for the front line. I only do two usually, but there are many, many more. So what you would do is you would pull the kneecaps up, squeezing in, just sit up nice and tall, point your feet, and see where that range of motion is for your ankles at this point. All right, kind of look and see what it is. All right, now we're going to do the front line. So you're going to take your knuckles again on both sides, right? And you're going to go from the kneecap all the way down the tibia, really hard across the ankle joint, bringing it back up really hard. And that counts as one. We're going to do 10. So we have 2 and all the way up, 3 and 4. And again, this might hurt your knuckles. So you can do it another time with some lotion on a bare leg. And we're going to say this is 6 and lost track. 7 across the ankle and 8 and 9. You can go on the outside a little bit and 10 and now you're going to use the same folding motion that you did, and you're going to squeeze. Make sure your foot is nice and relaxed, and you're going to squeeze, squeeze, squeeze all the way down across the ankle. Last one for this one is put the foot back where it was for the last one. With the same arm as leg as you're working with, it's a pushing movement. So you're wrapping under your Achilles tendon, pushing, and this one is pulling forward. So you're doing this opposition. All right, make sure that your foot is not tilted up to the ceiling because that would be sickling, right? Straight, a nice straight line from the third toe to the knee, and pull and push. All right, give it a nice good stretch. And then go back into that point, and you'll feel your ankle is much more flexible. All right, and if not, that's okay. It takes a while. Right? All right, we're going to do the same thing with the other foot. Here we go. Knuckles from the kneecap all the way down hard across the ankle, bringing it back up. And 2, and 3, and 4, equal pressure on the way up, and 5, and 6 across the ankle, and 7, and 8, you can go a little bit on the outside of the tibia, and 9, last one, and again with the squeeze, keeping that foot nice and relaxed on the floor. All the way across the ankle, coming back up. And now, going back into that point. And I can't see anybody's hand, but hopefully you have felt the difference. If you can do a thumbs up. All right. Okay. We're going to do only one of these so that we can get to the other exercises. But if you have a resistance band, I want you to get it out now. Should be one of these kind. All right. And we're just going to work on finding your own personal turnout from your hip joints. Okay. From your hip socket. So you're going to take this and put it on the backs of your bottoms of your feet. You're going to keep the big toes out, all right? But the pinky toes should be covered completely, all right? And you're going to do a square knot, okay? And it's got to be tied really, really tightly. And make sure your pinky toes are covered. So the knot goes in 2 different ways, so it doesn't slip out. All right, and you're going to stretch out so that your legs are completely straight. I'm going to do it this way, and I'll do it facing this way as well. All right, so now you're going to lift up, take your hands and lift up. All right, or if that's uncomfortable, you can put your elbows down and lift up. The reason why I want you to lift up is so that you can feel your bottom muscles. I want your glutes to be rotating and tight around the bottom. So you're feeling your thighs coming forward. Pull up the knees really strongly. And I also want you to squeeze in laterally or medially. All right, so I'm going to go up this way. Keep your heels together, flex your feet, and only by the strength of your glutes and the deep rotators. All right, Christopher Dean used to say, like you have a penny here, and you want to hold the penny there when he taught a ballet seminar. And we're going to count to 10. Pull the kneecaps up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going. 5, 6, squeeze in and up. 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so if you felt it in your knees were bent, all right, a little bit. All right, you should only feel it wrapping around. So those are your turnout muscles, all right, for your hips. All right, we're not going to go into the flex and point because I don't want to run out of time for the other exercises. All right, so that squeezing in and up, that's isometric, right? But when we're rotating and we're lengthening, we're trying to lengthen here, right? That's part of an eccentric contraction. Okay, I'm just going to put this over on the side. If you have yoga blocks, I want you to take them out. If you don't, I want you to just think about turning out, and we're going to be doing a flex and point, trying to keep your pinky toes on the floor. And again, that's a rotation, that's lengthening and isometrics, okay? But we're going to try it with yoga blocks, especially for those who have, I don't know, they call them biscuit feet, right? I want you to try and get that. I'm going to show you from the side here. You want to try and get your pinky toe below the level of the top of your yoga block. I guess I'll do it from the side here so you can see that. All right, so you're going to lift up and flex and demi-point and point hard. If that's hard for you to do on your wrists, just keep your hands here. But you're squeezing, you're lengthening. The knee from the knee up should feel like it's coming up. From the below the kneecap down, you should feel like there's electricity going down and away. And flex and demi-point and point. If you feel like your knee wants to bend when you do point, that's that eccentric contraction. It's moving against it, right? It doesn't want to do that. All right, so that may take a while to get over. Flex, keeping the knees pulled up, not locked, but pulled up, and demi-point and point. And flex and demi-point and point. You can also try this exercise with your skates and guards on as well, so you can feel the difference. All right. Madeline, you want to say anything about either of those, any of that?
Yes, actually, that last exercise, I am a skater, not a ballerina. So I have all of the movement compensations that a skater would have. So when I do that exercise in particular, I think it's great that we have to bring our hips up. As skaters, we're always in this flexed position. And so that exercise is particularly good for us because if our weight's on our hands and our hips in the air, it's forcing us to activate our glutes, rack them, and bring them forward, which for a lot of skaters is very hard to do, including myself. So if you're one of those people that has a hard time with hip extension, then that exercise is really good for you.
Yes, yes, definitely. When I was talking about turnout and you go into your, when you're in this position, right, when you're doing a spread eagle, I see so many skaters that they're doing their spread eagle almost like this, or their knees are bent. It's because they don't have the flexibility in the pelvis or the lower back to be able to stretch up. And the hip flexors are so tight, right? As Madeline was saying, the hip flexors are so tight. And even the iliopsoas is tight. because of all of these crunching kinds of exercises. So being able to pull the pelvis down, I'm not talking about tucking, it's just the pelvis down and the hip flexors flat and long. This exercise will help that, and we'll do more that help that as well.
And I'm seeing Joanna, you said you definitely noticed a difference after the massage. I do too, and always do. I think it's amazing. So glad you felt that.
Good. Yes, it's like magic tricks. I have a teacher student in not in California, in Canada, and she says, "Yeah, you should just rebrand this and call it magic tricks in ballet or whatever." All right, so now we're going to do a plie and split to the ceiling. This one is number 5. We're going to start this one in parallel because this is strength. All right, this isn't just laying in a frog position. We're going to start in parallel. Hands are going to be on the hips, or you can leave them here. I really want you to not raise the lower back. All right, so be very conscious of the yoga command in and up, but it's not belly button. It's about 2 inches below the belly button because that's where your center is. Your center is the 5th lumbar vertebra. If you were to take your index finger and your iliac crusts are here, if you were to bring your fingers together, that is the center of your body. That's where your personal 5th lumbar vertebra is. So it's not really belly button in and up. You want that to be in and up so that you have room to breathe. Okay. All right, so we're going to start in parallel, and on count 1, the heels are going to lift off the floor, but you're not going to arch your back, and you're going to count 2. Very flat and open here. Don't crunch. Leave this flat. Now you're at about a 45 degrees. Now again, not arching your lower back, open and really stretch. Feel the pelvis going down. All right, and the knees stretching out. You are using power to do this, all right? You aren't just opening to gravity. You are working hard to do this. In and up, long and open here and stretch, all right? And then you're going to bring it back strongly. So you're doing an isometric squeeze to solidify that, going back down and into a flex. All right, now we're going to do a second part of that. We're going to start the same way, up, no arching, open out strong, tailbone on the floor, all right? The coccyx should be on the floor. Put your hands here just to keep them still. Take the legs out, no bunching. You're gonna feel this wanting to bunch, no bunching, in and up. Flex, turn in and out in the hip sockets as if you have a peg leg, right? No knees, in and out. Point, bring the toes back. And now you're going to stretch down in that turned out position. Stretch, 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 flex, and lengthen. More and more. We're going to do that one more time. Parallel, 1 and 2. Open strong, 3 and 4. Hands here, open, 5. Flex, 6. Turn in and out, 7 and 8. One more turn in and out. 1, 2. Toes together, 3. Again, pressing down hard, no arching. Slowly, 5, lengthening, and 6, stretch, 7 and 8. Okay. Madeline, if you want to go up there and see if anybody's got a burning question, that would be great.
Yeah, we've got just Joanna's comment, but if anybody has any questions about the exercises we've done so far, please put them in the chat, and we can address those.
Right. Well, there'll be a Q&A afterwards. All right. So unless it's, urgent, we'll just keep going. Okay, now I'm going to do the one with développé and carry to the side. This one is to open. A lot of times I'm going to go this way. A lot of times when we try to carry the leg to the side, we go this way, right? So this is développé. Now we're in turnout. We're stretching away on and one. Okay, so every time I say the word and, we're actually going to stretch away from the hip socket. So it's and 1, 2, and now tighten both sides of the glutes, but feel like you're opening both sides to the ceiling. 3 and 4, no rolling over. And stretch away. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Reverse it. And 1. Take it out. 2. No movement. 3. Don't bunch the tummy. 4. Forward. And 5, 6. Reach to the ceiling. And 7, and 8. Other side. And 1. Taking it up. 2. Reach away. And 3, 4. Again. And away. 5, 6, and 7. Reverse. And away from the hip socket. Tighten, anchor it here. 2. And heel forward. 3, 4. To the ceiling. Reach. And 5, 6, and 7, and 8. And Madeline, would you like to show them 2 legs? All right, I will count it and you can do that part.
Yep. Do you want me to put the block under my hips?
You can, sure.
Do that.
All right, so Madeline's going to do both hips at once. So put them down first. We're going to do rotate. We're going to do just what we did, but you're going to do both legs. We're not doing fourth yet.
Okay.
All right. I had a hip replacement last year, so I'm doing well, but
You're doing amazing.
All right, and here we go. And 1, 2, reaching away and out. 3, and 4, and away, and 5, and 6, and don't touch the floor. 7, 8, and away, and out. 1, 2, and stretch away as if I'm pulling your ankles, bringing it up to the ceiling, and stretch out of the hip socket and down. But since you're on the blocks, don't arch your back. So just go straight. Okay, good. All right, now that you're there, we're going to skip over a few so you can do that 4. All right. All right, so this exercise is not really a stretching exercise, but what you're going to do is, this is a somatic exercise so that you can feel your full range of motion in your hip sockets without gravity, all right, and you can feel the differences. So Madeline's going to she's going to be like in a 5th position, first of all, right? Up to the ceiling, Madeline, legs up to the ceiling, one in front of the other. And you're going to go into a plie, right? In like 4th position now. Yep. And the front leg is going one way, like you're going to do a split, right? And split. And twirl. The legs are just going to fall where they fall, okay? All the way around. This is not forced at all. This is just to get a feel, and bring the legs back up together straight. Bring them back up straight and take a nice deep breath. And now the other leg is in front. So now you're going to repeat that with the other leg in front. And like you're doing a plie to the ceiling, plie, knees bent, and take the other leg front and stretch. Again, no tension, just letting it happen, and around, twirling around slowly. So you're feeling the hips in the sockets and coming up. Okay. So that's just a somatic exercise. And Madeline, would you like to describe what that helps you to feel personally?
Yeah, I personally love that exercise. To me, that's a great way to test your passive range of motion in your hips. So me personally, I'm not really, activating anything. I'm just kind of letting my legs go around in that circular motion. And there are definitely places where I feel stuck, and those are the places where my hips are really tight, especially in my hip flexors. Big surprise. So I love that one. Just as kind of a tester to see where you're at, where are your hips at, where do you feel tight, and that can kind of give you some guidance as to what you need to work on.
Right, and you can do that with your students as well. If you have kids or adults that you're coaching, and they can give feedback on that. All right. I'm going to, we have several more to do. We're going to do one sitting up, and it's a retiré. And this is going to show how your quadratus lumborum, this is the muscle that is in the back here, that connects with your iliac crust, right? And it goes up into the floating ribs. So if this is tight, you're not going to be able to do a good turnout either. All right, so we're here in our turned out position. You can leave the arms here, you can put them here, you can put them in second position, which is best. All right, and we're going to, on count one again, we're going to bring the heel off the floor immediately on count one. Count two, the toe is going to mid-calf, and you're really trying to turn out as much as you can. So you are working hard, all right? On three, the foot goes flat, and you bring the knee straight up to the ceiling. And how many people felt like they wanted to plunge down again in order to get this leg to go up? It's like doing a high kick, right? And you crunch down, yep. So at that moment, in and up, in and up. That's that eccentric contraction, lengthening up, take it down, heel is still up, stretch, stretch, stretch away as if you're stretching away from your center. And then the other side, and one, heel is up, and two, mid-calf, flat, three, getting taller and open on four, and stretch away, five, really push it down, 6, 7, and 8, both legs. One, watch, no bunching here, no bunching. 2, and flat, 3, getting taller on 4, and 5, stretch 6, 7, and you can flex on 8. All right, so you can see all of this happening. We have more exercises to do, so I can't do it as slowly as they should be or as many repetitions, but everything should be done 4 times, all right? And I would say if you want to think about what your inner metronome would be, I would say each count should be 2 seconds. All right, that's a good guideline for beginning. So you really are getting that mind-body connection. All right, next one is we're on our stomach. And I know Madeline likes this one a lot too, and it's been a real help for her. So I'll have her talk about it when we're done. All right, I'm just gonna do it to one side, all right? And then Madeline, you can do it to the other side, okay? So we're doing, you want your hip flexors to stay on the floor, all right? So the first part of this, we're just putting the head down And we're going to stretch away from center. Bring the leg up as high as you can, keeping the hip flexors, both hip flexors on the floor, and count 1 and 2. Keep going, 3, 4, stretch away, 5, 6, lower, 7, and 8. This part I can do both sides. And again, other side, stretch away, 1 and 2. Hip flexors on the floor. You're in turnout, keep it on the floor, but you're stretching that leg up, 5, 6, let it stretch more on 7 and 8. Next one, you're going into retiré, keeping the hip as close to the floor as possible. You want the hip flexor ideally on the floor, and then you want to take that knee up behind you, up to the ceiling. 5 and 6, stretch away, 7 and 8. Second part is 1, 2, take it out on the floor, 3, 4, lift up, hip flexor close to the floor, 5 and 6, lower, 7 and 8. And you should be this way, all right? So Madeline, you can do the left side. All right. All right, just the second and third parts. All right, retiré. All right, keeping that hip flexor as close to the floor as possible. And retiré, you're turning out on both sides. 1 and 2. And now knee is up, hip flexor down. 3, leading with the knee, and stretch. 5 and 6, good. As if I'm pulling your ankle away. Lift away, 7 and 8, good job. And second part, and 1, third part, and 2, keep that rear end down. Yep, stretching straight out to the side, just out to the side. Now you're doing opposites, right? Push that hip flexor down and stretch. Protect your stomach, in and up, stretch. I'm stretching that ankle away from center and lower. Okay. Thank you, Madeline. Now you can come up and tell us all about it.
Well, I got a Charlie horse in my calf during the middle of that. As you can see, my mobility is much different than Annette. Which is actually a point to bring up. One of the reasons I had so many knee issues is because my glutes weren't properly getting into hip extension, which is what that exercise forces you to do. So one of the main things you want to think about is just making sure both of those hip bones remain on the floor. And that is what really activates your glutes properly. So that's just, it has been an amazing exercise that I still struggle with, so.
We always have fun with that one. Someone says, can you explain to us how to keep the hip flexor close to the ground on the first part of the exercise? Yes, on the first part of the exercise, because that's what you're going to be doing first before you do the other 2 parts, right? So what you want to do is, you want to feel this hip flexor on the floor, which means the pelvis has to be in neutral, all right? You can't be like this. Pelvis has to be in neutral. You may even feel like you're pushing your pelvis as hard as you can into the floor. Then you have to extend the leg as if I or somebody is pulling your ankle away from your hip socket. All right, that's the eccentric exercise. And just keep it there. Just pull away or have someone pull it for you a little bit, just so you get that feeling. It might only come off the floor maybe 3 inches, all right? But don't despair. It will go up and up and up in time, okay? I hope that helps.
Yeah, that was great, Annette.
Yeah, a lot of times when you see people doing things that have been doing them a long time, it's like, oh, I can't do that, right? And so what you want is, a lot of skaters are very tight here, like basketball players, for a very obvious reason, right? So even just getting straight is almost going to feel like you're tucking the pelvis. But if you put your hands here, you'll notice I'm not tucking, they're just straight. All right.
Yeah. I think as well, for a lot of you bendy back girls, I'm one of them. I think my hips are forward, but really it's my low back.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that you're activated in your core and you're pulling your belly button up and then squeezing your glutes to push the hips down.
Right.
And that'll also help you get in the right position.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to do one of my favorites. It's we're just going to do a tendu, but we're going to do it on the wall. All right, so, and we're just going to do it with the back. Okay, so you're going to get into first position with your feet on the baseboard and then come up from there, making sure that your feet are firmly on the baseboard. All right, you're going to pull your kneecaps up. All right, and you're trying to not have a big space here. So deep abs in and up, very, very flat here. Make sure your heels are firmly on the floor. All right. So one odd thing about teaching without knowing methodology is nobody knows what a tendu is for. All right. Tendu means to stretch. Okay. So, and we're actually stretching the inside of the leg. This doesn't mean to point your foot. It means to stretch the inside of the leg. So we're pushing our heel into the floor for 2 counts as we go out to the side. 1, 2. Demi point is 3, and point is 4. Now, bringing it back in, we're going to go the same counts, demi point and squeeze, but I want you to think of this leg, the supporting leg, coming to meet the working leg. So you're feeling that squeeze on the inside. Demi point is 5. Squeeze, try to get the heel down. 6, and you're squeezing both legs together. Heel should be down now on 7. And isometric squeeze, heels together on 8. And we're going to do it again to the same side. And 1, heel down, and 2. Demi point is 3. Point hard is 4. Bring it in, squeezing both sides together. 5. Squeeze. 6. Heel is down. 7. Isometric squeeze on 8. Other side. Heel is on the floor. Keep pushing. 1 and 2. Don't move your hips. It's just the leg outside of the hip socket. Demi point 3. Point is 4. Squeezing in. Demi point 5. Heel is down on 6. Squeeze 7 and 8. Last time. Trying to get your pinky toes on the floor. 1 and 2. Demi point. Point 3. Point hard. 4. Squeeze and 5. Trying to keep the little toe on the floor. 6. And heel is on the floor. 7. Isometric squeeze on 8. And again, everyone has their own range of motion. It's not a competition. It's only to see how much you can do. Each side is also going to be different on the individual, right?
Yeah, I was going to add, if you're like me and have a hard time with turnout, I think it's better to make sure that your back isn't arching and that your hips, like rather than force your feet and arch your back, just make sure that everything's in line, and you got to kind of accept it, your turnouts where it's at.
Right.
And, you know.
Yes, it's not the ideal position. It's getting there. It's the process. All right. This is the most important thing. we're so competitive. We see something, we want to be able to do it yesterday, right? And the point is that it's the process of getting there that's the most important part. All right, so I'm going to do one more with you, and then we can have Q&A. All right. So this is the second half of my reverse crunch, which is a kind of like a nautilus. So we're going to go from here. We're taking the leg to the side, and we're bringing it back out. So the first part of it is this crunch in, but the second part, it's as if, again, I'm going to have Madeline do this while I talk. Okay. Yep. Whatever leg suits you. All right. Opposite arm is leg. There you go. Now we're just going to go to the side, turning out, push the supporting leg into the floor. Good job. Yep. And bring it back. And we're going to do that 4 times. Bring the arm forward. And now it's as if I'm pulling her ankle again, away from center, and bringing the arm and the leg side, away from center. Good job. And you see she's not bunching, right? She's keeping her torso long. And away from center, keep going. 2 more times, stretch. Good job. Yeah. Yeah. And last time, away from center. Good. All right. And from there, why don't you come and face me, Madeline, all right? And then we'll start from here, like this. So you've just finished doing this. And you're going to put your hand down and come this way. You're going to go across the body, slowly drop the foot, bring it up right where it is, pushing in the supporting leg. Take it across, attitude, push this knee into the floor so that you can stretch up. All right, so you're stretching away. All right, and long, and only one more time, and across, and drop, lift it there, take it across, attitude, push this knee into the floor so you can stretch and release. Okay, that's about all the time we have because we want to do Q&A. So let's just end with that straddle that we started with and see if you're feeling a little looser. So we'll just crawl forward. Nice deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then we'll go to the side. Try to keep the opposite head down, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Swoop around to the other side. Keep the other hip down, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And finish. Okay. All right. Woo. Woo. All righty. So, you want to lead us in some questions, Garrett? It's Garrett, yeah.
Hi.
Hi. You want to lead us in
Thank
some
you.
questions so we don't have to look through all of them?
Oh, yeah. There was a question that was posted in the chat. BB and Izazi wrote, thank you so much. Can you also help us with the same thing with the bent knee part of the exercise?
I think she was asking, sorry, Garrett, I'm just gonna, interject. I think she was asking about how you keep the hip flexor still on the ground. We had 3 parts of that exercise. She was also asking about They were also asking about the bent part, the developpe part.
Right, and my suggestion is just do the first part until it becomes better, easier for you, and then do the next part, okay? Because obviously when the knee is up, your hip flexor is really not going to be on the ground. It's just that you want to feel it pushing forward, and you want to have that opposition, all right, of the knee going up and tightening the glute, pushing the pelvis forward, so you have that turnout working for you, okay?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else have questions? Okay.
Okay, that's it for the questions. Well, I hope that everyone enjoyed what we did. I'm sure it's probably not what you expected, but I hope that you are feeling more mobile. And I can guarantee you one thing, you will not be in horrible pain tomorrow, and I think you will feel energized. I think someone is also saying something here. While I'm looking through these, Madeline, you want to say something about our new coaches manual? I'll interject as well, but I just want to read through these and see if there's any other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So Annette has been working, me and Annette, but mostly Annette, she wrote the whole book. We've been working really hard on putting together a coach's manual for skaters. It's like a comprehensive guide to teaching ballet for figure skaters. Annette wrote the book, I'm editing it. So we're hoping to have that launched later this year on Annette's website. So Annette, I'm sure we will both be posting about that. And it will be available there. I'm looking at some of the comments too. Sin said, I hope I'm saying your name right. Sin said the tendus on the wall were so surprisingly hard.
Yeah.
And I know it looks like you're not doing much. And I feel like that especially just activates my glutes so much. Like I can just feel all the muscles that normally don't get activated at work.
Right. And that is a prime example of an eccentric contraction. If you want to know where, that's not my exercise, and it's also not a Vaganova exercise, but I got it here. And this is a wonderful book. She's got a lot of fabulous floor exercises. Yes, the coach's manual is normally what I give my students when we do the 16-week course. All right, but I know that so many of you are curious about it, but don't have the 16 weeks to do it because it is a marathon. So this is a way for more people to have access to the material. Of course, you're not going to get a certification, but knowledge is more important than a certification. And I just want to say that out loud. Okay. All right. Okay, so anything else that we need to talk about, or anything else that anyone wants to address before we sign off? It's been a pleasure. I'd like to see more faces.
And that, what was that book you held up? I just want to put the title and author in the chat.
Yes, it's Maria Faye's Floor Bar. All right. So yes, the Vaganova floor bar is absolutely perfect, but this is all in a book, and she does marvelous, marvelous things. And that tendu on the wall is where I got this one. Right. Always cite your sources. Oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me see your faces. I live for the faces. Yes. Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
We'll send a follow-up email with the recording so you all will have it as well. So.
All right, great. Okay, excellent. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Everyone.
Yep.
Bye, everyone. See you
Bye.
later.